Welcome to another episode of the Third Space podcast. This is Bennett, and I'm here after a long break since our last episode. I didn't realize, but it's probably been 6 weeks or something since episode 23 of the Third Space podcast. The reason for that, as you probably suspect, is the holidays. Daniel and I, we actually planned to have an in-person, live, or whatever, podcast over the holidays, but it just never happened. We couldn't find the time. But fear not, we have another episode here, and it's a good one. In this episode, we talk about some little things here and there at the beginning, kind of fun, not very important. Then we launch into a Superpowers and Drawbacks, one of my favorite segments, high power level this time. And then our main subject of discussion is on the anthropomorphization of animals. And we talk a little bit about the psychology behind it, make some guesses. I probably come off sounding like I hate animals, but I don't. Animals are pretty cool. So I hope you enjoy that topic. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Don't forget, you can always reach us at mail.thirdspace@gmail.com. It's very professional because it's a Gmail address. We're also on YouTube, so feel free to listen at your pleasure there. That's your preferred method of listening to podcasts. And without further ado, I'll let Daniel take it away.
Welcome
Hello.
to Third Space.
Thank you.
This time, welcome. You kind of threw me with your hello.
I am on Third Space.
Welcome to Third Space. This episode brought to you by First Space and Second Space. Without you, we wouldn't be here.
Hey, that's not bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I despite my interruptions, it turned out all right. Actually, I'm kind of observing your transition from jingling to like broadcast sloganing, and I don't know. I think you're really broadening your horizons.
Well, I was thinking I got a pair of shoes over the weekend, Allbirds, and they're really light. And then I thought, oh man, it'd be awesome if they were sponsored or if I had a product thing. And then I thought, that's crappy. I don't really want that either. And then I thought, oh, brought to you by, and then First and Second Space popped in my head, and then I thought I'd be like, mine's first space and yours is second, and you'd say, no, mine's first and yours is second, and then it'd be a stupid debate that wouldn't really go anywhere.
That would be funny. It would be funny if we were funny like that.
Yeah.
What kind of shoes did you get? Auburn's, like the school, your favorite football team?
All birds.
All birds. Birds don't even wear shoes.
Yes, but they're light as a feather, I suppose. I don't know if that's what
thing?
they're going for. They're very plain shoes. If you're in the market for just I needed an everyday casual shoe that you don't have to wear socks with them. They're soft enough to not wear socks. They're machine washable and they're very, very light, and they're not gonna turn eyes, and they're gonna be, oh, look at those shoes. They're just good for jeans, shorts. I find that shoes.
Why do you have them then? If they're not gonna turn eyes, why bother?
I actually don't have a pair of just weekend shoes. Like all of my stuff are like these high tech, or these Cole Haans, like sort of like, I mean,
stretch.
They're silly
hydrophobic.
Shoes. They're not silly. They're comfortable and nice and kind of classy, and you could wear them with a tie
leather.
or a suit. Char grilled leather,
sun dried rubber soles.
And these are just, the fabric is nice. They're well made, and they've been getting trendy and popular. If that makes so. There's your
That's
answer.
Why, yeah.
But and they're responsibly sourced and
Whatever,
da.
yeah.
But
I'm
they're
not really
good
in the
shoes.
market. I'm not really in the market for shoes at the moment. I just wear tennis shoes or flip flops, and I'm satisfied with both of those that I have.
And this fits in that tennis shoe. This is a tennis shoe. It's just when yours go bad or something, I don't know. And they're at the $100 price range, so they're not like ridiculously expensive. But
you say they're tennis shoes. Can you actually play tennis in them? Cause
I believe you could do anything with them. They're sort of they have ones that are bent toward running, and they're all purpose. And I feel like it's funny. Is that common? Do people say tennis shoes still?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, like tennis shoes. Like, I'm going to buy a pair. Like, why did tennis, I would not say, is the most popular. People walk a lot more than they play tennis. You'd think it'd be walking shoes, or just all-purpose shoes, or just regular shoes. But
right.
Tennis is what we landed on for
tennis
the all-purpose shoe.
Yeah, I don't. That's actually I don't know why that is. Maybe in the history of shoe development, like tennis, they like some shoe company made a tennis shoe and it caught the world by storm, and everyone thought it was fashionable to just wear tennis shoes, and that's what the term became.
I'd like
Even
to
though
know,
now,
was it Reebok? Did Reebok make the first tennis shoe and
I don't know.
everyone bought it?
Could be, maybe.
What were they wearing before? Like clogs, those pilgrim shoes with buckles on them?
They were wooden clogs. Yeah. I think that's what came before tennis shoes.
And then tennis shoes came out and they're like, oh, this is so much better. We should do this.
Hey, I've got a fashion question for you that I thought of over the holidays.
Okay.
So why is it that shirts, if they have stripes, they're always horizontal stripes? Like, why don't you ever see vertical stripes or diagonal stripes or angled stripe, any other kind of stripes? It's just always horizontal stripes. Why is that?
Well, I think the question's flawed a little bit because you can see horizontal striped dress shirts. They're a little bit more rare. But yes, I'll agree that predominantly horizontal. And a couple of things I don't really know. I think trends are cyclical, and that might just be what's going on right now.
Well, I mean, have you ever seen a diagonal striped shirt?
Oh, diagonal? No. It's either horizontal or vertical, and I have seen. In fact, I'll see that horizontal. People say it can make you look wider, and that's desirable or undesirable depending on. I mean,
well, I don't understand what that has to do with race.
Wider.
Yeah. I mean, the only white people wear stripes.
Wider with a D.
Oh.
Like larger, I suppose. And
so horizontal makes you look wider?
That's the idea.
It makes you look like... I thought... It seems to me like a vertical would make you look wider.
Vertical would make you look thinner, like having these things just...
Well, it seems like it would accentuate your rotundity, Like with a vertical line... If you see it, it doesn't look quite so vertical when it's going over your paunch,
Paunch. Well, yeah, okay. I mean, you're bringing up all sorts of questions that I'm trying to figure out which ones to dive into. I mean, if someone has a big old belly and then they have vertical lines, and it would accentuate their distortion. But
right.
the problem with, I'll just say like fat people.
Don't stop. You can't say that.
Oh,
it's offensive. People of girth.
So people of girth, like whatever you're gonna wear, it's just difficult. Like looking good. It's almost funny. Like you don't put your energies into the clothes like yet. Just go ahead and wear, like, try and be not as noticeable as possible, and then go lose weight. I'm sounding really mean here. I'm judgy. I just mean that if you are bigger than you ought to be, so in some ways you could even say distorted. then your clothes, like you're either gonna just like cover up and hide as much as you can, so it's gonna be baggy by necessity. If you got some form-fitting thing and you're big, then that's not the greatest look. And so lines get distorted. So lines, regardless of the direction they're going, they get it accentuates that. So yeah.
So okay, so that makes sense, but I still don't understand then why horizontal lines are preferred over vertical. Are you just saying that it's simply arbitrary fashion at the moment?
I suspect it's arbitrary fashion at the moment. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're right that I've never seen diagonal come into fashion.
Right. So maybe that's an unfilled market. Maybe we need to put out the Third Space Podcast diagonal dress shirt.
I like this idea. Well, if you think about even just home decor and you think about clean lines, oftentimes, like if you just walk in any home and your lines are created, actually it's a sign when you see things like perfect squares that you're not in nature. And we see lots of squares in, you just don't see squares or perfect lines. You only see them in like artificial ways and constructions that we've made. And so, and typically you walk in, and whether it's the screen you're looking at or your couch to some degree, even if it's a rounded couch, it's still vertical and horizontal lines. You don't have a lot of diagonal.
Yeah, we like to put things on a grid.
Yeah, that's really it. And the grid is not diagonal. I mean, it can be, I suppose, but it's not. And so maybe they're just tapping into something like going, that's not that pleasing, or it's a bit off. Yeah,
Hey,
that's my best.
your girlfriend is painting one of your walls, an accent wall, you call it, right? I don't know if she's completed that yet, but you should consider diagonal lines,
I like that idea.
or at least
Yeah, she's
some
not
part of it
completed it,
diagonal.
so yeah, because even if it's just one accent, the accent wall has an accent diagonal in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that a lot.
All right. Well, that was just a question that occurred to me. But for our actual starter this time, I want to do a superpowers and drawbacks. How does
This
that
is
sound
my
to you?
favorite. It's probably my
Good.
favorite. Yeah, I'm gonna pretend it's a fan favorite too.
Yeah. Sure. No, I really enjoy it too. Although I enjoyed this or that last time. So, but anyway, so this time we're going to turn up the power level. We're going to go with a power level 6 out of 10.
Is this the highest yet?
I think we did a 6 once before. But actually, I'm going to look out of curiosity. We did a 5 before. Oh yeah, this is the highest we've ever gone. We've never done a 6 before.
Nice.
So these are going to be pretty powerful.
I'm excited about it.
All right, so the first superpower, just to remind people how this works, I'm going to present 2 superpowers and 2 drawbacks, and you can choose to take one of the superpowers, but if you do, you have to take one of the drawbacks.
Yes.
And you can just choose to walk away and not take anything, I guess, if you want to be really lame. So, all right, the first superpower that you have is called somnificent.
Somnificent.
Somnificent. So for this one, while you sleep, you can put your body on autopilot, and it'll do mundane tasks that require no interaction. So things like washing dishes, paying bills, vacuuming, exercise, things like that.
Can
So
I
when
grade papers? Sorry.
I would say no.
Okay. Something
no.
that requires a lot of mental acuity is not going to be for
Yeah,
this.
it's not going to work. Just kind of rote tasks, basic reasoning skills.
Okay.
Something that you might be able to do while like sleepwalking. You can imagine opening a door or grabbing a tool and doing a basic action.
I'm getting I'm getting rested during this though.
Yes,
Like,
yeah. When you wake up in the morning, you're just as mentally well rested as you would be with a normal night's sleep.
Got it.
Now, you may be physically tired depending on what actions you made your body do while you were sleeping. If you chose to exercise, you might be sore in the morning, but you would still be mentally well rested.
Somnificent.
Somnificent. Okay, that's the first. The second is called evacuation expert. So for this one, you gain the ability to teleport your waste products from within your body to any location in sight within a 30-foot radius.
Say that one more time.
So you gain the ability to teleport your waste products, so your poop and your pee or whatever, from inside your body. You can teleport them out of your body anywhere within a 30-foot radius that you can see.
Oh. I'm hard pressed to explore the benefits of this. Well, I'll think about it in a moment. I'd rather hear them all and then really unpack and ask more questions.
With that one, you can still use the bathroom like normal if you want to.
Okay.
You don't have to teleport your crap everywhere, but
And you have to see it. Like I couldn't be somewhere else and then teleport it to a toilet 30 yards away. I can't see it. It's in a room somewhere. The bathroom's closed off always. So rarely is a toilet visible from non-restroom using experiences.
That's true. If you want to restrict yourself to that tired old trope of putting your crap in a toilet. All right, so you've got your 2 superpower options, but to take one of those, you have to take one of these drawbacks. So the first drawback is called anti-Midas touch.
Okay.
For this one, your palms exude glitter. The amount of glitter is similar to if you were to place your hands palms down on a plate of glitter and let it stick to your skin. That's how much glitter just is constantly replenishing out of your hands' skin.
I hate that.
And it's gold colored. That's why it's called the anti-Midas touch, because it's like a curse. kind of a curse like that.
You could weirdly you could say this to like a 6-year-old and they'd be like, "This is a drawback,"
Yeah, really.
Kid that loves glitter.
So cool. I'm sparkly.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's very very straightforward. And then the fourth one, and one of my favorite ones on the entire list that I thought of months ago and I've been waiting to use, is called SHED. SHED. It's an acronym.
Okay, tell me.
And it stands for Suddenly Hairless Erectile Dysfunction. So
okay, what happened? I'm scared to ask.
For this one, anytime you get your sexuality aroused, your skin releases its grip on all of your external hair, and it all falls out.
Wait, every time you get an erection, you lose all your hair?
Yeah, every time you get sexually aroused, all your hair falls out. All of it. Except for, like, all of your external hair. So, like, your nose hairs and ear hairs and stuff, they don't fall out. But your eyebrows, your head hair, your arm hair, leg hair, all your hair falls out.
Oh, my gosh. So, you'd have to basically just deal with being bald, but it growing back. And if you, it would grow back. But, oh, my gosh. Bennett, okay, let me get this right. Somnificent. I can do basic tasks while sleeping and still get a good rest, which sounds pretty freaking excellent.
Right.
What'd you call the evacuation expert?
Yeah, evacuation expert.
You can remove feces and urine and any other excrement, I guess, within 30 yards or so.
30 feet.
30 feet.
No, you know what? 30 yards. I'm feeling generous.
Whoa, that changes everything.
I'm feeling generous. 30 yards.
Anti-Midas touch, glitter, just perpetual glitter kind of falling from my hands. And then
SHED.
Suddenly hairless erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, called SHED.
Okay, let me reason through. Actually, I want to go through the drawbacks for a moment. Usually, I start with the pros, but so I hate glitter. My immediate reaction is horrified with the glitter. But if you can deal with it, it's not particularly. It's not harming anything. You just have to deal with glitter in your life. Like my question is, would I be able to normalize? I just got glitter everywhere. If I can accept that and get over it, then I get this awesome superpower, and I don't have to I've already accepted the gold, so no drawback there.
Well, you probably have to deal with whatever the ramifications are of eating a lot of glitter. I imagine it's going to be pretty difficult to avoid consuming or breathing in glitter.
It means putting gloves on every time, and that would be very annoying. Like, because there are ways around. I could try these gloves that start to fill up and then dump them, and even if I'm doing that, that's like, oh, I found a loophole, but not really, because putting gloves on forever is annoying. And so so like that might be a strategy I attempt, like, sincerely. And also, I was just thinking new relationships. If I met a person, they seemed pretty cool and nice or whatever, but they were going to get glitter on everything and I had to deal with that. I would just go, nah. Like,
absolutely not. Even if they could like distance poop, like, I'm not putting up with glitter everywhere.
I'm trying to think of the benefits of evacuation expert. What are your thoughts? What are you going to do with that? Like, you don't have to spend time in the restroom. There's some plus. There's a plus. You can do some funny things to people, but like, I'm not a big prankster, and I'm particularly, if I do pranks or anything like that, I like to be in the friendly category. And when feces are introduced, you're no longer in the friendly category. You've crossed a line.
I think it's mostly a convenience power. So you wouldn't necessarily have. Well, let's be clear. You could be an amazing prankster. You could be like a supervillain with this power. And so that has some draw to it. But also there's plenty of convenience. Like you say. And maybe in most places you can't just see the toilet, but you could pretty easily. You could be just taking a step. You can take a step, peer out, look into the bathroom. If again if you want your poop to go in the toilet, then you could just look. Oh, there it is. and teleport your poop out into the toilet, and there you go. You didn't have to do anything. Or, if you're really lazy and you're looking out the window, well, there you go. Look out the window into the grass or whatever and just send your poop out there.
If you camped a lot,
that'd be
very useful.
Nice. Right. I mean, it could save you from if you have really unpleasant diarrhea or something, then you don't have to go spend all of that unpleasant time sitting on the toilet. You can just get it out of you, and it's no longer a problem.
I just realized I'm going to assume farts count in this evacuation. They must, and I could, now I can avoid any embarrassing fart, or I could even. This is where I would gladly and quietly do that to people, like throw my fart in their face, and they'd have no idea.
Yeah,
that's pretty pleasant.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't want to criticize your scale, but putting that at a 6, even I guess it's magical, so it's up the magic factor, but it's the attractive. I'm almost thinking of them in terms of how extraordinary they are and how attractive they are likely to be, and I don't find this superpower particularly attractive, to be honest. But the somnificent. Basic tasks. I want to explore this a bit more. So I get why I couldn't grade papers. Could I go grocery shopping?
Yes, I would say yes.
Like fill up my gas tank kind of thing.
But you would have to, if you were grocery shopping and didn't have a list, or you had to think about what ingredients you need or something like that, then I would say that's probably too complex, and you might wake up.
I have to have a list. I could have a list ready for myself that I already made consciously. Yes. Could I drive in terms of road trips and say, all right, because this is a major question. Can I drive? Because, I'll just leave it at that.
I would say kind of similar to grocery shopping. If you have a, straight, boring interstate drive and there's not a lot of, not a lot of thought or navigation involved or traffic or any unusual circumstance, then yes, you could manage it. But otherwise, it could be a little dangerous. The way I'm imagining this working is, if you are in the middle of your routine, you're asleep and your body's doing whatever, and then you encounter a situation that is surprising, then you kind of wake up drowsily and now you're conscious, but you've interrupted your sleep.
Okay, so if I'm going on a road trip, a 6-hour road trip, if assuming it's all on interstate and it was a smooth ride, then I can sleep through that. If it, for some reason, if we come across this weird traffic and construction, then I'm kind of having to wake up. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I work out? Can I set up here's my workout routine and just do that?
Yes, that's one of the ones I intended it to be used for.
Yeah, that's very attractive, right? I cannot read books, I'm assuming. Obtaining new knowledge, that sort of thing. Yeah, you could put your body through the motions, but you wouldn't remember what you read. Perhaps I could study stuff I've already studied and review it during my sleep. But that's a weird question.
I would say that it's probably not going to be very effective. You could try it.
Slightly better than not doing it. But I get what you're. It's just that doesn't really fit into the spirit of this.
No.
Any other questions about somnificent? Okay. Now let's get the shed. Suddenly hairless erectile dysfunction. That's another one. If you just sort of. First of all, it's funny to think the first time it would happen, and if people wouldn't know, they would just think, oh my God, what's happening to you as your hair just falls out. But if you had that alone and people accepted that you are indeed hairless, because let's say at minimum this is happening several times a week, you're just going to be bald. How much hair is going to grow in 2 or 3 days, 4 days, a week, whatever.
Right.
So you're just this completely hairless person. And that's, even though it's hilarious, it's me accepting, would I accept being completely hairless? That's a funny way to put it, but that's what I'm saying. It's instead of thinking of it as getting a boner and losing all your hair, I just think of it as I'll be completely hairless.
That's right.
And
take all the fun out of it, but you're right. That is essentially what it is.
Shed is so funny. I like props to all of that. Um, at first, I'm like, just no. My knee jerk is no, but I'm thinking about this. Can I accept being hairless and getting tons of things done and being in great shape? Like even, but the question becomes, why do I want to be in good shape? And it's two major factors: feeling good and looking good. But losing your hair is a substantial, like being completely bald, no eyebrows and stuff. That's substantial.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, people can pull off, especially, really in shape men can pull off a bald
Absolutely.
style. The eyebrows, I would actually say the eyebrows are the biggest detriment for this drawback, because almost no one has no eyebrows, right? You might have to
Right.
do
I would
something
get a
about
tattoo.
that.
I'd get tattooed eyebrows or whatever. They do that kind of thing now. I really would.
Yeah.
And maybe even some tattooed stubble or something. I know that sounds goofy, but that makes it actually attractive. If I can overcome the eyebrow thing, which I think you can with the tattoo, I think it would like suffice. It wouldn't be ideal, but it'd suffice. And then you
Yeah.
can literally get pretty big, and your place can be spotless. Like you don't, and also not only spotless, but you don't have to actively do it. You can leave dinner on the table. You can
Yeah.
make a mess when you get home. You can shave with like and let the hairs fall where they may. You know what I mean?
Not if you choose shed.
Oh yeah, you don't. Which I would, by the way. I'm not gonna do glitter. I just decided I can't handle the glitter. Dealing with new relationships, I'd have no new relationships in life. I'm pretty sure no one would want to be friends. I'm giving up cleanliness as I know it. And you're asking too much. I almost wish I could shave my head, look in the mirror. If this was a serious proposition, I would consider somnificient with shed, and I would look in the mirror. I would legitimately shave my head and go, "Can I deal with this?" And if the answer is yes, which I think it just would be.
Well, also consider that your capability for sexual arousal declines over time. Eventually, you're going to be an old man where this isn't really a problem anymore.
True, but I also might have lost hair, like naturally be bald at that point. I
guess that's true as well. I guess that's true too.
And when you're that old, I don't think it
Who
matters.
cares?
Like a good head of hair, like, doesn't. Yeah, who cares? So I this is the first time my knee jerk was like, no, I'm not taking any of this. I'm just walking away. But then I've thought it through, and I think I'm gonna take somnificient and shed because
Wow.
I really do, and I think even if I get over the whole like trying to feel handsome and look good, I think I could get over like just doing chores, like having this immaculate place and not having to clean. Like you don't have to work for it, because I think I love cleanliness, but I don't like working for it. And now I would
Right.
get all the benefit and none of the cost. Like that's a major thing. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it.
Yes, actually, I agree with your choices. I would choose the same ones for basically the same reasons.
We're so alike in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I hate glitter with the burning passion of 1,000 suns. Like, I hate glitter so much, I can't believe anyone brought it into existence, and I hate their souls for it. I despise
Did you ever
glitter.
like it when you were like a kid? Like Kid Bennett
No,
was like,
no,
it's all right.
Kid Bennett hated glitter because if a single piece of glitter gets on you, then you're doomed. You're just doomed to suffer with that piece of glitter until the glitter decides it's had enough of you. You can't just like pick glitter off. It doesn't work. It stays on you somehow. I hate it. It is a curse. It's a real life humanity drawback.
You know what? Just a side note I find remarkable is that things you really liked as a kid, you tend to really like now. Things you hated as a kid, you tend to hate now. Like, I'm almost want to pose the question to you: what is something you liked as a kid and don't like now, or vice versa? You know?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
Like, because, and I don't want to detract from the conversation too much, but for the listeners, they should like you're a consistent person. Of course, you've matured and gained complexity over years and thoughts about things, and they may have morphed. But like, I don't know, like when you're a kid, you liked Lamborghinis or Ferraris or whatever, and no one's gonna not like those things. That's a dumb example, but I just wonder if there's anything you really hated as a kid that now you're like, I kind of like now. So
I'm struggling to think of anything. I know that there are things, but nothing's coming to mind. Something that I disliked as a kid that I like now. There's some food things, but it was only because as a kid I just thought they were gross and didn't.
Maybe the
try
weird
them.
out factor, like sushi or something.
Yeah, so I never tried sushi as a kid. I would say maybe mushrooms, but it's not a good example because as a kid I didn't eat a lot of mushrooms. I did at one notable time. I was at a steak restaurant and they had put a mushroom. This is, I don't know, I must have been 6 or 7 years old. They put a mushroom on the steak and I thought it was steak and I ate it and I threw up because it was actually a mushroom. I kind of hated mushrooms ever since then. But in my adult life, I've eaten mushrooms, and they can be kind of tasty. There's different kinds of mushrooms. Some of them are, pretty tasty. So that might be one thing. But taste, it's not that good.
Taste isn't interesting, though. As interesting.
Yeah, it's not that interesting. I mean,
food. Because I think when we're kids, we subscribe to things like, oh, broccoli you're supposed to not like, or I think mushrooms even kind of fall in Brussels sprouts, and you just hear these things, and you're a kid, and you're like, ew, it's not pizza, it's not cheeseburgers, ice cream. So
yeah, I don't know, nothing big comes to mind. I'd have to think about that.
I didn't want to throw the whole conversation though, but that's something, maybe a conversation for another time.
Yeah, but I mean, generally, you got me pegged. Like my tastes stay pretty consistent. I'm just a consistent dude.
Like, I haven't asked you this in a while. Is green, would that be your favorite color? I remember growing up, it was green.
Yeah, green was my favorite color as a kid. I still like green. I kind of pay lip service to it as my favorite color, but I like blue a lot as well.
I find that question kind of not interesting. What's your favorite color? It's like, I like colors. It depends on everything. Depends. Are we talking about clothes? Are we talking about decoration? Are we talking about in nature? Like, what are we in a painting? What are we talking about? And a variety
variety is the nice of life.
I was trying to think of spice, like sugar of life. I don't know. Anyway, it's stupid. Yeah, so you would take somnificient and shed as well.
Yeah, I think I would. I couldn't deal with the glitter because it's awful. Evacuation expert would be fun and convenient, but not as convenient as somnificient.
Not even close, really.
Well, because I don't like exercising. I like having exercised. I don't like, taking care of chores and washing dishes and all of that stuff, but I like having it done. I don't like cleaning, but I like having my place clean. So, like, I like the results, and I don't like the work. I mean, pretty classic way to, to deal with these things. But like, to be able to just task my body to do those things while I can enjoy sleep, that's wonderful. Like, that's so amazing. And I don't even mind after exercising being kind of sore. Like, in a way, that's kind of pleasant. It lets you know that, you've done some stuff and your body is, healing itself up. And so, like, even waking up a little sore, I'd be like, oh man, I must have put myself through a good workout last night. Time to enjoy my life now.
Yeah.
It would be great. And
go ahead.
And I think that, with the same equation you used for shed, I could use as well. Like, I think, I could deal, like, who cares about my legs being hairy? No one else, and I don't care that much. Same with my arms, same with underarms, same with all my hair except my visible hair, on my head, like that's right. The loss, and eyebrows. Like, that's the loss, is that I'm going to look unusual. But I don't know, people would look at me and assume that I had cancer or something. They might even give me some extra deference and kindness because they assume that I've been through this horrible ordeal instead of this wonderful bargain with the magical, cosmos where now I've got a superpower as well.
I've become a hat wearer possibly too.
I would probably become a hat wearer, and I think I might entertain some kind of eyebrow something. It would something. I don't know about
I use the word tattoo, but I do mean just this sort of, they do these sorts of things like someone who's their nipples and stuff like that, whatever.
They do that.
So also, quick thing too, if it for the somnificient, you could possibly find some mundane working task like transcribing notes or something and make a few bucks, possibly. Sure. I'd be looking into that because you can only clean your apartment or your residence like so much. So
I mean, there are night shift jobs like security jobs or desk jobs or whatever where basically that's what they're paying you for, is to have this inconvenient night schedule. That's your purpose, is to do some mundane task while being awake at night, and voila, now you essentially get paid for nothing. Like, put your body on this boring duty while you sleep.
I've often thought, by the way, there's this trash service, valet trash, at my apartment, and it's like 5 nights a week. You can just put out the trash before 9 or whatever the time is, and then the person comes around at night. Probably takes them several hours, collects all the trash, puts it in the back of their truck, takes it to the dumpster, it's still on the property, and throws it away. And that, I was just wondering, like, what would that be worth for me to do? If I were really scrounging for money and they said, hey, we'll reduce your rent by half or something. I was just contemplating to myself, what would I take that deal for? It's smelly and gross, and 3 hours a day, maybe 3. You could do it. I mean, you could probably plan it out, and not everyone's putting out their trash every day. There's probably lighter days, and you just run through, pick it up. I could talk to you on the phone. I could listen to a podcast. Like, I was actually thinking if that just became sort of my, all right, it's 8 o'clock or whatever the time is, and just do it for a couple hours. You could definitely do that at night, and then go shower and do all that stuff too. So I'm just trying to think of all that. And like, does that appeal to you at all, even as outside of this superpower thing? Like, would you take some giant rent reduction, or even like as much as like, or would it have to be like free rent just to do something like that? I don't know. It's just a thought.
I would have to crunch the numbers and see. A knee jerk is no, but I would crunch the numbers and see if it turns out to be a valuable proposition.
Yeah, I mean,
my time is. I value my time.
Too. I don't know. Right.
I highly value my time. I value my time more than my money, and so it would have to be a lot of money to,
exactly,
relatively, to pay for that time. And if I'm not asleep while doing it, then I, like you say, I have to put up with smelly trash and some idiot with holes in their trash bags or
people are bad about their trash, and you might have to maintain the dumpster too, which it's always getting overloaded and stuff. So I have no idea. Anyway, boring stuff.
People are idiots at my apartments with their trash.
I know.
We have to carry it over to the dumpster, and like, people suck. They just kind of like half throw the bag on top of the dumpster, and the thing is closed, and it's like, what are you doing?
They're so lazy. It's like, this is trash to me, and I'm not going to. I mean, for mine, like, they don't push it in this little you have to push it to a certain point, and they don't, and so it piles up when it didn't need to. They literally could have just pushed it over the ledge, and they just didn't go the extra foot or so, and it's piling up, and other people are, and I just could throw it over all that stuff.
Look,
and
it's the dumpster. The dumpster at my place has doors on either side of it, little sliding metal doors, on either side, and one door will be open and the other door will be closed, and I'll go out there oftentimes, and trash will be pouring out of the right side door, and people will have just put it on the ground because they can't squeeze it into the door. But then I walk over to the left door and open it, and it's empty over there. Like, there's a big, empty half of the pile inside the dumpster because no one had the brains to walk over there and open the other door. And
it reminds me of the shopping cart kind of phenomenon too. Just put back your shopping cart, but they don't care. Like, it's their trash, they're done with it, and the cart has already served its purpose. So they go so minimally past what is a cursory, like, putting it back. Like, a lot of people will even put it back in the spot, the shopping cart spot, but they don't push it into the other cart. And so, like, three or four of them will take up the whole line, and it just is like, just push an extra foot. Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Speaking of shopping carts, we're really on an exciting tangent here. Speaking of shopping carts, I've noticed an annoying thing that this the grocery store's responsibility here. Now, a lot of grocery stores have big full-size carts and small, like, single shopper carts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
But the shopping cart return lanes only have one aisle, and the two types of carts, they don't squeeze together right.
I think that was the foolish part. They should have designed them to squeeze together right, or push together, or lock in place, or whatever. The fact that they are designed completely at odds with one another, it's like, that was not good thinking.
Yeah, not a good idea. I mean, I guess, if you have a good grocery store, like Publix usually is, then you're sending your employees out there to retrieve the carts so often that it's not a problem. But
it's a shame that even you could make it two lanes to put your carts in, but even making 2 lanes doesn't mean that's going to happen. Like, someone's going to put a cart in each one, and they've already screwed it up. So
you would have to do some sort of clever design of your carts so that the small carts don't fit in the big cart lane, and the big carts don't fit in the small cart lane.
Yes, and the big not fitting in the small makes total sense and is easy. I don't know how you do the other one.
Yeah, you would have to put some sort of little blocker or something on the frame of the cart.
Yes.
Kind of how, like, if you have a SD card and you try to slide it upside down into your camera or computer or whatever, it doesn't go because they've designed a little notch on it or something.
Yeah, smart.
You have to do something like that.
Yeah, but it's sad that you have to make things so wildly idiot-proof that, just making something the size of the lanes, or just making 2 lanes is not, you can't rely on the public to go, oh, there's 2 different types of carts, there's 2 different lanes, one for each. You can't do that, which is so reasonable to ask of a society,
No, you can't rely on the public for anything. I have become so cynical about the public, about people. Like, these people are stupid, and that sounds really... I used to not say that. I've always kind of thought that, but I used to say, no, I'm just a person too. I have my flaws and my blind spots, and there are plenty of things I'm ignorant about. And I used to try to be humble and all that. Nah, not anymore. Not anymore. Like, most people are just really dumb. Most people are super dumb. They either can't do things, or they're just too selfish to care.
That's what I think. I think it's unbelievable apathy. Like, who cares? You've got an employee to come collect the carts. Why would I go put it back? Like, obviously they know and can intellectually grasp if there are 2 lanes, and they just don't even. Yes, the general public has the intellectual aptitude to say there are 2 different carts and 2 different lanes, and they can do this math, but they don't because they don't care. And so, like, the question is, like, how can you get the public to care? And
it's a dearth of responsibility is what it is. Like, you just aren't responsible for the impact that you have on the things and people around you. Just tidy your own box. If you get a cart, just put it back where it goes. Like, it's not that difficult.
So as a teacher, I'm given these duties. I might have to go to a lunch duty or an after-school duty, a parking lot duty, those things. And a lot of teachers complain about it, and it's natural to complain, right? Like, I didn't get a 4-year degree. I didn't get my master's degree. I didn't get my PhD to like watch students and tell them to pick up trash, or this sort of attitude. Or I didn't get a degree just to. I almost feel silly sometimes when I create an activity and I'm cutting up paper, or I'm like doing this almost arts and crafts activities. So I get like I want to get frustrated. And so the link back to what our discussion is that, like, it's easy to get frustrated and say, this isn't my job. This is not part of my job. It should not be part of my job. So someone who's just gone grocery shopping doesn't want to, could just easily take the look, like, it's not my job. It's this person's job to collect the carts, not mine. So how do you find sort of as a societal responsibility in conjunction with, like, personal, pick up the stuff around you kind of thing?
I think it's a parenting job. I think that the reason we see a lot of this is lack of or poor parenting, and parents who think that their kids' preferences or personalities should be paramount over their responsibilities. I mean, there are people we know and are friends with people who are just kind of oblivious about things that are going on around them. And, they may be disorganized or messy or whatever. And, if you're doing that within your own home and it's your own things, fine. But you should have the responsibility to be able to be a functioning human being, respectful of others in other places. For example, the grocery store or, whatever.
So you're saying obliviousness, it sounds like it's just sort of harmless, that you're oblivious and you pay your own price, but it's not okay to be oblivious. Like, to be a good member of society, you cannot be oblivious. You have to actively combat. I would say our autopilot thing is to be oblivious and just care about what we care about. But that's what I'm saying. Oblivious people care about what they care about. And they don't try to fight that impulse to think about others or what their surroundings are doing or that sort of thing. Like, what's going on in their surroundings.
Right.
What does this action do to other people?
I mean, you might even say that a defining trait of humanity is our thoughtfulness, our ability to examine our own actions and plan out our futures. This is something that distinguishes us from animals. And some people don't make use of that extra humanity, like they don't make as much use of it.
They're just animals.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that, like, fulfill your potential, like be a human and do the things that a human can do that every other species can't do.
It reminds me of something I tell my
put your carts back.
Put your carts back and be like actively thankful is what I tell my students. Like, you have to, it's a learned behavior, not just innately. Like, you're not innately born with so much gratitude. I mean, certainly there are people that are more cynical than others, and I'm not debating about a range of sort of dispositions, but I would say that, like, if you can learn to be thankful and spot things to be thankful, just like you learn to look around you and see how your behavior, like, learn and look at the parking lot next time and put stuff back and sort of correct stuff as you go.
I mean, like, the obliviousness is, to me, observing cause and effect is so second nature. Like, to watch my actions and see, okay, what happens when I take these actions? And, I think it's perfectly fair to give everyone the benefit of the doubt when they're doing something new and they make a mistake. And then but then the expectation is they will observe the ramifications of that mistake and won't make the mistake again. So if it's your first time, you've left home and you're a college student, you're a college freshman and you're going grocery shopping for yourself for the first time, and you leave your cart out in the parking, it's not really that forgivable because surely you would have been shopping before, but whatever. Let's just say
theoretically, yeah.
Maybe it's not shopping with the cart. Maybe it's they're at the self-checkout and they can't get their card reader to work, or they can't weigh their potatoes correctly. Whatever. That's forgivable, because you've never done it before. Fine.
Yeah.
But just observe. Just observe your own actions. See what mistake you've made and don't make it again. Just don't make repetitive mistakes. Ugh. I don't, so you shouldn't.
Well, there's also just mistakes that the weird mistake I made the other day. I was coming home. I was very tired. I'd done a lot of work. I was kind of patting myself on the back. I was hitting on all cylinders, but exhausted, mentally fatigued. Mm-hmm. Pulled over into a Wawa. I was gassing up, and I was just checking texts or emails or whatever, checking my phone. And I realized this is the first time this has ever happened to me. By the way, my car was cranked. It was running. Oh. And I was gassing up, and I just have never done that, and I kind of was like, what? Oh my god, and turned it off. How dangerous is that?
Not dangerous.
Okay, I was told it could blow up.
Yeah, so. Sure. Well, they also, if you look at the stickers on the gas station, it says don't use your phone while you're pumping gas.
I've heard that before, and how somehow that's going to create a
static shock.
I've heard that.
Potential for
sounds like a myth to me.
Yeah, not really a lot of danger. But, conceivably, if you had your malfunctioning phone and you were holding it right over the fumes of your gas tank while it filled up, then it could ignite and whatever.
But was this like from flip phone era too? Like, how much are these static? What is it? I mean, I'm sure it's creating some electric signals that could create something, but
I would trust flip phones more than modern phones.
Okay, yeah. I just figured that, to me, I was just thinking of the actual action sparking something, but you're right. That's a dumb thing. That's a dumb thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be the electronics or in some fashion inside would have a short or something. I don't know.
So you said something about animals and our baser instincts and how what separates us is thoughtfulness. I thought you alluded to some stuff before we started recording. I thought that'd be an excellent segue.
Yes, that is a good segue. I have a topic that I want to talk about that I was kind of thinking about. I want to get your take on. So it's kind of it's in a similar vein of a lot of my topics in terms of psychology, especially group psychology. So the topic that I'm thinking of is the personification, or the better term is anthropomorphization of pets.
Yes.
So what that means for people who don't know what the word means, it's a gigantic word, by the way, anthropomorphization.
Yeah, it's so hard to say.
It's when you treat your pets like they're humans, or you project human-like traits onto your pets, like their emotions, understanding, behavior, those sorts of things.
By the way, like animated films, when you have talking dogs and they act like humans, that's anthropomorphization. Jeez, that's
anthropomorphization. Yes.
Anthropomorphization.
That's what it is. So I've always kind of thought that it was an interesting phenomenon, but maybe this is just my perception, but it seems like lately it's a lot more prevalent than it has been before. I don't know if maybe that's because I see a lot of like girls our age that are just obsessed, and I mean the term literally, obsessed with dogs.
What constitutes obsession versus just like a healthy, regard for?
Well, I would say that if discussion of your pets takes up greater than 20% of all discussion that you have, that would qualify as obsession. If you spend a considerable chunk of your income on dog treats and toys, and if greater than 20% of the pictures in your phone are of your dog, if you take daily pictures of your dog, these sorts of things, I would say fall under the umbrella of obsession rather than
basically if your pet occupies 20% or more of your life. I mean, really, if it's your discussion, your social life, if it's in your social media.
Yes.
Yeah. Where'd you arrive at 20%? That sounds like sort of reasonable.
Just arbitrary. Just arbitrary.
What should an animal, like a healthy dog or an owner or animal owner, like, and they love their dog within healthy bounds to you, what percentage of that is acceptable then?
Less than 20%. But of course, I'll be fair and say that the percentage probably depends on the content of your life. If you have a full family and a career, then you would expect the pet to take up a smaller proportion. If you're an unemployed, single person, without much going on, then maybe you would expect the pet to take up a larger proportion.
That's true. Imagine you have 3 kids, a husband or wife, and an active social media and all this, and it's still taking up over 20% with the animals. That would be strange.
Bizarre.
When you have a wife and 3 kids, and yet this animal is getting a lot of attention.
But I think the top end is somewhere around 20%. Even if you're a single, unemployed person living alone with your pet, like I think you edge into unhealthy territory if the pet occupies more than 20% of your life. And that's kind of where that's kind of one of the things that I'm edging towards with this topic, is I want to understand some of that obsession and the anthropomorphization and the psychology of the person and how they treat the pet, and maybe the good and or mostly bad things that can come out of that for the person.
And before we launch into that, can we just sort of share our general views, opinions, and experiences with animals? Or
Sure.
Would that be a good baseline starting point, so listeners know where we're coming from?
Definitely. Yeah, go for it. What are your experiences with pets? Did you have a childhood pet when you were a kid?
I did. I had dogs growing up. My dad was extremely allergic to dogs, so they were not indoor dogs. And it was sort of one of my responsibilities to feed them daily. I played with them and all of that too. And I've always loved... I've been a dog person my whole life. If someone has a dog, I'm just attracted to. I want to pet the dog. I want to play with the dog. If I'm walking past a dog in public, I don't typically stop to pet them, but I desire to. I just I noticed the dog. Very And cats, I have an increasing fondness for, but generally, I've joked around my strong distaste, almost jokingly, right? Like
Sure.
a parody of itself. Just my like, I used to just say when no one's looking, I kick cats. I would just say that to be provocative and silly. But
you
I
don't really do
and I never-
that.
and I haven't.
Yeah.
No, and I don't even really hate them. I just find I don't like when you're petting them and they love it, and then they just change their mind, their attitude. That's always irked me, and I found that very rude. And I don't like how unpredictable they are. But generally speaking, I just really enjoy animals, and I don't currently have any. And the primary reason is because I like the mobility I have right now. If I want to do a little weekend trip, I don't want the responsibility. And so the costs outweigh the benefits for me, particularly if I have some friends, with animals. I can just play with them and sort of enjoy the experience without having to invest, because there's a lot of investment.
Definitely,
So,
yeah.
and like the whole idea of training a dog properly, very first thing you got to do is sort of potty train them, break them in kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a huge task just alone. And then I'm imagining startup cost plus a conversation I think I'd have to have, like, with my girlfriend, and say, if this dog or if this animal gets sick, like, where are our boundaries where we just say we have to put the dog down?
Sure.
Because I'm not, sorry, like, I've fallen in love with the dog. Now it needs a $10,000 surgery. Like, and even if it could say, and it'll live healthfully for the rest of its life, it'll solve all the problems. It's like, and no one can say that with guarantee that, especially if it's an expensive. So, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
But no, we have to put a cap on this. And the thing is, I worry and I'm suspicious that we put the cap on before getting the animal, then you fall in love with the animal. Does that all go out the window? I mean,
it depends if you anthropomorphize the animal or not.
I think so. Yes,
that's definitely true.
And I think you inevitably do, which I think our conversation, I don't want to get too far down that, but I think the reason we own pets is to anthropomorphize them. Like, that's the purpose. Without it, it's just like, why am I letting this animal in my house to poop everywhere?
So
like,
I don't,
by necessity, we do.
I agree that I think that is part of the purpose, but I think that's a bad thing. I think that there are other purposes that are healthier for both people and the animals, that are not anthropomorphization.
Well, I mean, I think you. But don't you think when people talk about health benefits and them bringing joy, and the reason you bring them to hospitals to help kids and sick patients, and all the joys that they bring come through this sort of psychological, maybe.
No,
it's not.
Well, I think that I absolutely think that a pet owner's interaction with their pets has psychological effects, many benefits. But I think that it starts to actually pathologize when you step into anthropomorphization. That's when you take a step in the bad direction. The further you go into anthropomorphization, the more unhealthy it is for all parties involved. But there's certainly a healthy relationship between pet owner and pet that's psychologically beneficial that is not anthropomorphization. There has been for centuries and millennia a relationship between men and dogs, for example, that's one man's best friend. Like,
yeah.
And it's not an anthropomorphization relationship. You're not treating the dog as a human. You're treating the dog as a dog that you love, but it's still a dog. So I think it's possible to have that healthy relationship.
So you're not just talking about sort of projection. Like, there can even be some projection onto them that's fine. Like, oh, he looks sad. Look at him. He looks sad. Or, oh, he looks so happy. And well, first of all, they probably are happy and sad. That is not just distinctly human. So that's not fair. But, like, it's okay. Like, I could still see, and I wouldn't do this. It sounds cheesy, but you dress them up in some little, like, Christmas sweater, and then you put, like, you take a picture, and then you put on the picture, like, Happy Holidays. I mean, can that still be healthy behavior? I would say, yeah. I mean, I think you're clearly getting into some interesting you're on your way.
You're getting there.
Because you are projecting, like, the dog's not wishing happy holidays. The dog has no conceptualization of Christmas or whatever. And so, yeah, you're getting there. But like, but if you still understand and it's just being playful and cute, like, you could still do that in a healthy bounds, I think.
I think it's possible, but yeah, you're getting there. So as for my part, my experience with pets, I'm kind of the same as you. We always had dogs growing up. Ever since I was a little kid, we always had a single dog at a time, an outside dog. And I enjoyed having the dogs. Me and my dad would go camping and bring the dog along. Although I would say that even from a young age, I became annoyed with many of the things that having a dog entails. Like my chores were, I had to feed the dog as well and give the dog water and all of that stuff. Fine chores to teach a kid to be responsible for a pet.
Sure, yeah.
And I was responsible for the pet as a kid, but I grew to understand that those responsibilities were more annoying than the benefits that the pet provided. So
you killed it or what?
Yeah, so I just, No, I didn't.
The fact that we can laugh about that could hurt a lot of pet owners. Just the joke, the joke could be offensive. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about a joke like that offending someone?
I don't care. I aggressively don't care.
Are you saying that they probably are anthropomorphizing to the is someone who is offended? Are they almost certainly in an unhealthy territory?
Yes, absolutely. I say that with full confidence. In fact, I have a funny story that I'll tell you about a family member, a family friend, along these lines. But we'll save that. So anyway, all that to say, I like dogs. I like other people's dogs more than the idea of me having a dog. Dogs. When I was a kid, I didn't like it because we always had kind of bigger dogs, and they would jump on me and get me dirty, or scratch me, or slobber everywhere, or stink, or I don't know. And what do they do for me? They're just kind of excitable, and they're a dynamic creature running around, and they'll fetch a ball, and that's kind of cool. But is it so cool that I'm okay with mud and slobber on me? No.
Well, I just want to look as an aside to the listeners, and this is gonna maybe annoy you. You're saying you like dogs. I think most dog lovers and people would say Bennett doesn't like dogs.
That's fine.
or doesn't like animals. They would say he's like...
Well, they're wrong about...
not true. You're right to object. I just think we have to say, like, your practicality or whatever you want to call it is so strong that...
That's fine. You can say that I don't like dogs as long as we have an understanding that I don't like dogs in this societal milieu of pathological dog obsession. So yes. I'm perfectly able to have an appreciation for dogs. I think I could even own a dog and train it to be tolerable and maybe even enjoyable. But you know what? I have no desire to have a dog. As far as my like for animals, I consider myself a person who does like animals. I enjoy a large variety of animals from a more scientific perspective. I think other creatures are fascinating. I like the variety in the way they look. I like their behaviors. I like the different sort of psychology that they all have. All that stuff is very interesting to me.
I like your perspective, but there's not a but. I like your perspective. So when people ask, do you like animals? Are you an animal person? By our culture standards, you'd be a resounding no. But your answer is yes.
That's
is
right.
Is that accurate? No?
Yeah, I would say so. And let me be clear. I don't... if I go to a friend's house or whatever, and they have pets, I'm not kicking their pets and, going, ew, they're slobbering. I'm not like that. I can appreciate other people's pets. I understand it's just a thing you have to deal with. Fine. But, I don't have any pets of my own. I don't discount the possibility of owning a pet one day, but some thought would go into it.
Right. You would. It's almost like it'd be a concession for you. You're in a relationship with a girl who loves a dog. You'd be like, okay, I can do this if
that would
have
be
some boundaries and things like that.
Yeah, that would be a concession. I would try to come up with some alternate path, maybe a chia pet or something.
Wait, is that the hair growing, the green growing for the hair?
Yeah.
You want a pet? Here's a chia pet. Yeah, that ought to satiate.
That would go over well.
Satiate the desire. Yeah.
Merry Christmas! I got you a puppy, chia pet.
I like it.
All right, so I did, just so we don't have to rely totally on our subjective feelings about pets or observations of the obsession or ownership of pets of others. I did look up just a couple of small stats to sort of back up my impression, but most of this is kind of an impression thing. So I did look up people aged 25 to 39, so the millennial generation. They make up about 20% of the population, but they own 35% of the pets.
Interesting.
Of all people. And 73% of people in that age range own pets. So, you got a 3/4 chance of owning a pet if you're in that age range, which we are.
Wow. But I mean, do kids, and they certainly count as an age range, kids, do they have 0% of ownership of pets?
I don't know how the stat was calculated, so I don't know whether they would include a family owning pets. I don't know which people they would include.
Right, because it doesn't seem fair if a giant portion if 20% of the population is 0 because they're kids, but they have pets in their family. But I get what you're saying. 35% of them, when they make up 20% of the population, and you said 73%?
73% of millennials, so people from 25 to 39, 73% of those people own pets.
That shocks me.
That's huge, right?
It's so huge. Gosh.
This pet ownership has increased by 20% since 1988. So the trend
That's significant.
The trend is upward. Lots of people our age own pets.
Restaurants are starting to allow and even encourage and have doggy treats. Culture has definitely changed. Allowing pets everywhere. Yeah.
So I want to talk about some of these cultural trends of anthropomorphization and other other examples of anthropomorphization. So, like you say, restaurants that allow or even serve pets.
Right, they'll have a little doggy menu.
Which is absurd. I mean, maybe it's cute, but
I think it's all motivated by money. I don't blame them if they can get more money and it doesn't offend the general population, and I can charge some $10 or something for some treats. I'm going to do that.
There's definitely a kind of insidious monetary economic angle to the pet market. I think it's a $46 billion market in the U.S. or something like that is the number that I saw, which is big. And people capitalize on this obsession, and they expect you to buy Christmas presents for your pets and birthday presents for your pets and Halloween costumes for your pets, and people oblige.
It's a whole new avenue. It's it's just holidays. In some ways, they're corporate driven things. Yeah, might as well, if you can tap into dogs and or every holiday and everything, getting it's wow.
Well, here's where I'm angling in on the pathology and the where it's unhealthy. So the millennial generation that I outlined, we have this big uptick in pet ownership, and we also have a corresponding downtick in having actual human children. So our rate of child having is lowering. People don't have as many kids. They have kids later in life if they do have kids. So what it seems to be happening is there are many people who are replacing having kids with having pets instead.
I mean, maybe that seems plausible. That's what is happening. There is an uptick of this, and is it downtick? Is there a relationship? Is the question, and that's what you're positing.
Yes, that's what I'm throwing out there, and my hypothesis is, again, this isn't broad scale. Certainly, there are perfectly well-adjusted, healthy people who, for whatever reasons, either don't have kids or have kids later in life, and that's totally fine. But my suspicion is that maybe there's some sort of societal strife going on with people in our age range, where maybe having a family is a void in their life, and they're unfulfilled by it, and so they try to fill that void by having a pet. And you might say that that's a healthy way to cope with that void, and I think it can be healthy, but I think it's also kind of a narrow ledge that you walk, and you can easily step off the side of that into unhealthy behavior. And that's what I think this anthropomorphization is. And I think that we fuel this sort of behavior, and with predatory market tactics like I say, the dog toys and the dog holidays.
Sure. As soon as they notice this trend, it's can we monetize this? Was the question.
And I think lots of people have fallen into that trap. So some other things that I observe, and I see this all the time, being a single person trying to date girls our age, I see probably in literally 20 to 40% of dating profiles and stuff, I see the phrase dog mom or fur babies. And these phrases drive me up the wall. I hate these phrases because you're basically saying, I am unhealthy. I have an unhealthy relationship with my pet. And another thing, which I don't think they realize, is that using those phrases means they're literally calling themselves bitches. if you're a dog mom, well, you put the pieces together.
Yeah. Well, can I back up for a second and say, so people are getting married at later than they used to. I mean, it used to be very young, and it seems to then, and then it was common in your 20s, early 20s, and I just want to know, okay, so I kind of like the idea of people getting married later, develop your brain, find your sense of self, and then get married. So that cultural trend seems to be something that sits well with me. Don't get married when you're 18. Figure yourself out first. And so then that means you're having kids later and this sort of thing. And so I'm just trying to relate that idea of why are people getting married later. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's a bad idea, and it's creating these voids that then are leading to dog ownership and stuff. But I'm trying to map on, because it's tough to say, all right, everyone's owning a dog and then they're delaying kids, or is it that they're getting married later? And then why are you getting married later? Is it because you're wising up as a society and saying this is a bad idea, or to get married so young? Is it because religion typically says, save yourself before marriage, so you're dying to have sex, right? And so you jump into a marriage.
Religious families usually get married earlier.
Right. And so, and I would suggest that we are trending less religious as a culture.
Yeah, definitely. Verifiably so.
Yes. And so then we're getting married later because we're just, there's not the motivation to jump into a marriage in order to have sex. So once you've removed sex as sort of a carrot for marriage.
Marriage has been getting less and less valuable for a while.
Right. And then when divorce rates the ease of divorce is there, so you're getting divorces more often, and it's less taboo as well, so you're getting it more often. Yeah, so marriage is definitely here's under assault or at least no, that's such a loaded term, but marriage is getting less valuable, and yeah.
Well, I think we could link in some of the shopping cart stuff here and say that there's responsibility is in danger a little bit, and marriage is a thing that takes a lot of responsibility, and people seemingly are less responsible and less capable of marriage. And as you get older, generally you become more responsible, and so maybe that's another link why people wait until they're older to get married now.
Do you think that as marriages become less, people are getting married less, so they're looking to fill their relationships? How do we have markers that signify the seriousness of our relationship? One is obviously living together. Another might be pet ownership. Hey, let's get this animal together. It's kind of like a precursor to kids. And if you sort of solidify this idea that having a dog, let's raise a dog, and that would in some ways indicate whether we'd be successful raising a kid, that there you're linking the anthropomorphization, right. You're linking that immediately, and that actually just seems sort of like a reasonable thought. If we do terrible, if we argue about the needs for this dog, then it's just going to be amplified with kids. And so I feel like I'm guilty of agreeing with that rationale. It doesn't seem that corrupt. Raising a living thing and having to decide what's in its best interest and disagreeing and fighting about how to reach conclusions about how to carry forward, that all fits. So,
yes.
I mean, do you think do you think that's wrong to do?
No,
it seems reasonable to do. Practice raising a dog first.
Yeah, it does seem reasonable, and I want to be clear that all the things that I'm presenting, whether it's pet ownership in general or adopting a pet together or whatever, all these things can be done healthily, and I have no problem with them being done as a general practice. But I think it can go wrong. And when it does go wrong, it has certain effects. So, for example, if your motivations in a relationship, if you want to get a pet together, you and your girlfriend or whatever want to get a pet together and kind of prove that you can share the responsibilities of raising another living creature, I think that's fine. That's kind of responsible and it makes sense. But you also have to consider that anthropomorphic link, the fact that you're adopting a fur baby, if it goes that far.
Yeah.
And then if the relationship ends, where does the dog go? And I think a lot of times what happens is a couple will adopt a pet together and then the couple will break up. And now the dog will be the object of all of that missing affection, all of that lost love from the relationship now gets directed onto the dog, and the dog is expected to fill the role of the lost boyfriend or whatever. And I think that's the genesis of a lot of this obsession.
Wow. That seems, reasonable. Like, I could see that happening. Like, dogs are so easy to put your pain into,
Yeah.
they just are there. They love you regardless. I say love, I just mean that they're dependent upon you and are fond toward you almost. I mean, if you're cruel to an animal, which rarely any reasonable pet owner is not cruel. So even if you're a bad pet owner, don't forget to feed them sometimes. They're not going to be furious with you and make you pay, so to speak. They're just gonna love you.
Right.
Their love is cheap.
That's right.
But even I noticed that our language is so encoded, like the way we say love,
Yes.
and we say, we just take all the language about human relationships and we just speak about dogs in that same way, or animals in that same way.
Yeah, we project all of that stuff onto dogs, and
Though we don't do it with like a guinea pig. I just doubt we'd just say like, oh, that guinea pig, Earl loves me so much or whatever. I just don't think or my fish loves me so much. I don't think we'd say that, but we would say the dog loves. But they're more emotive and stuff, and they're more interactive too. So like, I get why we do it. I just think this is almost a cautionary discussion, right? Like where is, because I don't have an issue. I'm not out there to try and change using like my dog loves me. Like I feel like that's a pretty useful term. And yes, but we should definitely distinguish between like, human love.
Well, trying to
love
win
is
back
difficult.
Trying to win back the definition of the word love is a lost cause. That word is over. So
I love cheese.
Right? Yeah, I love cheese. But so yes, we project emotions onto our pets, human emotions. That's the distinction, because our pets can actually feel emotions depending on the animal involved, but they're primitive and they don't have the consciousness to experience the emotion in the same way that humans do. So there is a distinction. You can observe a dog's happiness or anxiety or love, so to speak, but it's not the same as a human's.
So, like, what's an example of an egregious projection?
I would say that perhaps if you imagine this breakup scenario, where a couple breaks up, and the girl takes the dog afterwards and is really heartbroken about the breakup, and pours out her heart to the dog, speaking to the dog, saying, how she's alone now and how the relationship was terrible and she'll never find anyone, blah, blah, blah. And the dog is just going, I'm a dog, and is, going,
just breathing. Yeah.
And snuggling up, to
and
be
she thinks,
warm.
oh, you understand me. You get me.
Yes, you understand. You get it. You understand my problems. You'll never leave me. Like, I have you.
You know what's more insidious than that? I don't think all that even has to. Well, all the things can take place, and they might not actually, sit down and talk to the dog out loud, and they might not actually look at the dog and say, you get me, and like there would be this secret hidden camera that would capture all of this, but it would still be happening. Like they wouldn't make the conversation, they wouldn't say it out loud to the dog, but they would feel toward the dog like, you'll never leave me, or like, this is why I love you,
Right.
you'll never leave me. So like, you don't have to say it for it to be true. It's like, it's more insidious, it's slow, it's not as explicit.
Yeah,
And so you sort of like, your love for the dog starts to be disproportionate or like unhealthy at that point,
well,
right?
yes, and I think the reason why it's insidious is because we base our perceptions of objects and animals and people based on the reactions that we observe, and we look for affirming evidence and deconfirming evidence, things that contradict with our preconceived notions, and things that affirm our preconceived notions. So if we have the notion, my pet loves me and understands my feelings, you can observe things that you can interpret as affirming that stance. The pet snuggling up to you, the pet being happy when you come home or wagging its tail. But what things can you observe that contradict that statement in a dog?
Oh, I mean, I would think there'd be endless things.
Really? Like what would suggest that the dog doesn't understand you explicitly? Like, I can't think of any, actually.
No, well, I mean, because
the dog is never going to speak up and say.
That's the catch. The catch is that the dog, we accept that they are very, very limited, and so if their expression is just positive, then, or just okay, I get what you're saying.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I don't understand in terms of like they're not. Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying now.
If we're talking in the business of projection, and we're projecting that they're affirming, our assumption that they understand us. Like if we are convincing ourselves they understand me, and we interpret their snuggles and their tail wagging as affirmation.
But then we don't accept them walking away when we're needing them, like that. We just go, he's a dog. Like, of course he walks away.
Yeah, of course he walks away. Oh, he got excited when I fed him food as well. Like, of course he does. He's hungry. He wants his food. It's not that he
That's what I
shows
meant by countering, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not that he shows the exact same actions towards his can of wet, sloppy food as he does to me, his crying, emotionally bereft owner. Well, that's the thing. And that's why it's so insidious, I think, is because, and that's what anthropomorphization does, is you project your human emotions onto the dog. And this is why it's unfair to pets, is that you can grow to expect them to behave in a certain way that they simply aren't capable of. Like, you could imagine a situation in which, again, I'm going back to this example, and it may be a little unfair, but let's imagine the breakup scenario. Again, the girl owns the dog, and then 2 months later, the ex comes by to pick up some stuff. And the dog, seeing the ex, gets super excited and is like wagging its tail and running up to the ex-boyfriend. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, good to see you again, boy, blah, blah, blah." And the girl now is just mortified because she thought the dog loved her and not this jerk ex-boyfriend who stomped her heart into the mud, And, and you could imagine her being spiteful against the dog in this pathological, unhealthy situation, but it doesn't sound like something that's impossible, right?
Right. No, that's reasonable. Yeah.
I mean, it's not reasonable. It's unreasonable.
Well, that's
but it's plausible.
It's plausible. It's reasonable. That scenario is reasonable to play out. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I think that kind of thing can happen. So what I want to ask, though, and we've touched on some of these things, but why do people engage in these sorts of anthropomorphization behaviors? We touched on one. Maybe it's a coping mechanism for life events, maybe a breakup or something like that. But why else do you think maybe we do this?
My guess is it's least resistance, path of least resistance. If you can potentially get fulfillment from a dog, and a dog requires, like, yes, we talked about how laborious the process of pet ownership can be, but the process of genuine intimacy with a partner or a friend, or even a friendship, is vastly more complicated in terms of like investment. Maybe not investment in terms of like, I'm not buying your food, Bennett, but there's like the emotional complexities of humans is vast, and so to maintain close contact with humans is harder work than, sort of rotely buying some dog food and taking them on a walk. Like, it's just easier. That's my simple answer. It's easier to get a dog to love you.
So, okay, I think I see what you're saying. This is one of the things that I thought too. Like, as social creatures, humans, our norm is to observe and react to the emotions of other humans. And we try to read other humans' anger or love or happiness or whatever. We see it in their body language and in their expressions and words.
Yep.
We're used to interacting on emotional terms with other humans. And so that's kind of our mode of interaction. And maybe we just transfer that to everything we interact with. And it's an unthinking task to transfer that same sort of interaction and projection onto pets as well. So it's the easy path, like you say. And it just so happens to be even easier because pets never contradict our projections. Like we said, they aren't conscious beings in the same way that humans are. And so, so we have less tangible information to go on. A human, if we incorrectly interpret an angry human as a happy human, we're going to have a bad time. But if we incorrectly interpret, a happy dog as angry or whatever, it's not going to be necessarily as bad of a time. I guess it can be if the dog bites you or something. But
right. But I guess I'm talking about fulfillment, like the investment I put into an animal and then get the fulfillment. There's some short-term gains there. A dog like coming up and wagging his tail, so like that's such a burst for my day, or such a good moment. And what did I have to do to earn that? Not a whole lot, other than just be and continue to feed them, like set a system in place that I accept the system of taking care of this dog, and I get all these short-term bursts and boosts. And so that's the difference, though, is that I would say animals are only capable of providing that short term, and since we are sort of
we need
immediate satisfaction, though we're a society of like,
I see,
now, give me here now, and so we mistake that for something more substantive. And so if you don't get, like you said, if the dog doesn't object to your projections, then you're allowed to think it's more substantive than it is. So that's easy.
So do you think maybe what you're talking about explains the rise in emotional support animals and people's reliance on those emotional support animals?
Oh yeah, it's also easy to say, hey, this dog is going to help me, than to sort of just say I need to help myself too, right? Like it's a trend. It's a psychological. It's a psychology
it's a crutch,
trend. I think we're also gonna look back at it and see it as this hip flare up that like, look, it'll reach its norms, and I do believe animals have therapeutic tendencies. I'm not denying this sort of stuff. They do. I just think we're like a little inflated right now at their use of it. Or very inflated, perhaps.
I think there's an analogy to be drawn between a psychological, a therapeutic use of a pet and a therapeutic use of a drug. They both have therapeutic properties, and you can rely on them genuinely to get you through a hard time, but they can also be abused. And I don't mean, in terms of kicking your pet. I mean in terms of relying on them to give you more emotional support than you should rely on them for.
Yes.
Your instant gratification thing, that makes perfect sense to me. Like, I think that I would suspect, I don't know this, and I didn't look it up, but I would suspect the people with emotional support animals, I would suspect they're going to need that emotional support animal for the rest of their life. At whatever level of therapeuticness the animal is providing, they're going to need that forever. Like, there's no healing from that situation just because of the animal. Like, it's not a cure. It's
not a cure. It's just a coping mechanism.
It's just a coping mechenism, right?
By the way, people really mourn the loss of their pets, and I think that's fine and okay. But now take your animal that you've now equated with medicine.
Yes, right.
Oh my gosh, I can't see the grief. Like, dogs don't live that long, so you have this coping animal basically, and when it dies, I mean, all hell's gonna break loose because you've basically attached your mental health and interlaced it to the animal in an explicit way. You've literally probably gotten some cards that say this is a therapeutic, therapy dog or whatever.
Sure.
Like, oh my gosh, I think that could be disastrous for way outside what typical mourning of a family animal or something would be.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a part of the problem of anthropomorphization is that you set yourself up for greater pain down the line.
Yeah, you've actually and you're justified in it, or you feel justified. Like, this is my therapy dog, and my therapy dog died, so I should spiral. Like,
Yeah,
I'm giving my permission to spiral and self sabotage and whatever.
if you're a dog mom and your fur baby dies, then you feel the grief, some of the grief that a mom might feel if her baby died. And I think that there's something not quite right about that, you know?
Do they try to combat this? I don't know about therapy world, but like, do they have some rotational thing on purpose? Like, don't have a therapy dog for more than a year so you can get used to sort of a rotational thing. Like, I'm going to guess that's part of it. Like, outside of the abuse, it's rampant abuse. People take their pet animal and just get it deemed a therapy animal all the time. But
Yes.
but the more legitimate avenues that you go to a service and say, I want a therapy dog. Like, I'm going to guess they have a system where they say, well, then you get this dog for a year or something like that. I don't know, but that seems to be smarter.
That does seem smarter. I looked into service animals and therapy animals, which are two distinct things, by the way.
I wouldn't know. Well, I mean, I know there's service, I guess, for blind people and stuff. That's more of a just a
Yes.
explicitly practical thing. Yeah.
So I'm totally, I have zero suspicion or cynicism about service animals. That seems like a novel solution to, a disability problem. If you're blind and you have a seeing eye dog, that's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
But if you have, an anxiety disorder and you have an emotional support hamster or something that you carry around with you to the grocery store and to work and everything, I can't help but look at that and say, isn't there some other way that, you might be able to work through your problem and to strengthen yourself so that you don't have to rely on this emotional support hamster?
Well, the answer is certainly yes. There's different ways, but why is that way? I guess for all the reasons we're kind of unpacking, but
right,
let me just pose it anyway. For why is that way bothersome to you?
Well, it's only bothersome because of the risks that it poses that we're talking about. If maybe there is some service, like you say, that they give you this support animal for a year, that way you never have to experience the animal's, or you hopefully don't have to experience the animal's death. Then maybe that is a good therapeutic method, as long as the understanding is that it's a temporary measure that you eventually have to be weaned off of, the same as any drug. Then I don't have any problem with it. But I think there are risks involved. And let's also be clear, most of the cases I'm talking about aren't people with diagnosed issues going to a professional and getting prescribed this. Most of the issues I'm talking about are people who don't have a diagnosed issue but probably do have an issue who are behaving this way with their pets.
And is your worry that maybe someone who's a little more fragile, mentally fragile, or whatever the term you want to use, is like the world of pet ownership can exacerbate issues more than solve them?
Yeah, that's a concern. Yeah, that can exacerbate issues. I guess really what my ultimate concern is that, multiple times many people have observed the increasing trend of anxiety and other mental illnesses that we've seen in the past 10 to 15 years, especially in younger people, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like that trend. I would like people to be generally healthier and happier and more well-adjusted for both my benefit and their benefit. And I think that if we have this instant gratification sort of coping mechanism in pets that doesn't show promise of long-term success, well, I think that's something that we should look at and go, oh, is this a thing we should be encouraging? And so, I think, but again, I want to be absolutely clear. There's a distinction between healthy pet ownership, which I have zero problems with and think it can be a psychological boon, and unhealthy pet ownership, which is what we're talking about. I just think I think it takes more knowledge and more awareness than we think it does to own a pet healthily. And I think it's the obliviousness thing again. I think people are oblivious to the requirements of owning a pet, and they can fall into this unhealthy pathological path of anthropomorphization without realizing it.
I mean, I guess that's why you would if you're going to be a responsible, healthy pet owner, you should have a conversation about the confines of like, what is our relationship with the pet going to be?
Have
like?
A conversation with your pet. Have a conversation with your pet and say, "Pet, are
not
you?"
The pet.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Before getting the animal.
Got it. Understood. Sorry, made a mistake there. So. Well, I think. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, a thought popped in my head while you were talking about like this whole big discussion about mental health and physical health and part of like I think discussions around mental health are reasonably or relatively new, and sometimes the resistance we may have, I don't know. It's just if you can't see it and it's tough to say and what's helping and it's really confusing and it's like how seriously should we take it? We don't know if you're just sort of what you're relying on, But there's this John Stuart Mill, the philosopher. He said, "Ask yourself if you're happy and you cease to be so." And I've wondered about this and striving for mental health. Like
we do have a society of plenty.
And we're a society asking, are we mentally healthy? And it feels like we're ceasing to be so. So I'm wondering. I mean, I think that's the spirit of his quote. Like if you're constantly obsessing about happiness or mental health, and I wonder how much this fits in with dogs or I keep saying dogs. I know we're talking about animals more generally. Yeah. I'm sorry. For me, I'm just filling it with dogs.
I think dogs are the primary, type of pet where things can go wrong. Not only are they, based on what I looked up, they're the second most. I suspect this statistic, but they're the second most popular pet after freshwater fish.
That's just because of ease of.
I guess so, right? But even I just can't. I can't imagine. I don't know that many people with aquariums, but I guess if you have an aquarium, you have multiple fish, and it inflates the number. I don't know. Whatever. Like dogs are like the second most popular pet apparently, and so not only are they the most common, but I think they're also one of the most expressive types of animals, and so it's easy to project emotions onto them. Like a cat isn't as expressive as a dog. I mean, they can be. They can purr and all of that stuff, but they're just not as expressive as a dog is.
Yeah.
But back to what you're saying, the philosophical point that you're making, I think can be broadened to talk about many other things. Like we're a society of plenty. There's not a lot of strife. Like we don't have any major just fatal flaws in our society, and so when we're in a place like that, we start to look for some flaws that we can, we want utopia, and we ask ourselves, are we in utopia? And then we find that we're not, and so it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, we're not at war, so we'll go to war with each other. Not that we're not at war completely, but we're not.
Right.
The daily person, the average American, is not experiencing this sort of wartime, and so we'll go to war with each other, and you see that playing out.
Well, also imagine too this. I don't want to go down this route too much, but there's people have also supposed that we kind of generally have a lack of purpose, and if you have a lack of purpose, and you don't have any major problems that that you're having to put your mental effort into, then. What are you going to do? You're going to catastrophize the small things, and you're going to make a purpose out of something. You're going to make a purpose whether or not you have one or not, No,
you are.
And I think that can be unhealthy.
Freaking pet owners.
Pets suck. Not really. Well, one thing I was going to tack on to the end of what you said is I think it's darkly humorous that we're such a society of plenty that even our pets are obese. Like there are major pet obesity problems. Like people have to go get medication for their dogs to not
doggy
be fat.
Xanax is a term I've heard.
Oh yeah, doggy ADD. Like we're actually perpetuating our mental illness and fatness. People of girthness.
People of girth. Yeah.
We have pogs. We have little pets of girth running around underneath us. We're pogs owning pogs. Pog pugs.
Oh, there's the title for this piece.
Pog pugs. Pets of girth.
That's good.
Anyway, like we're so fat and mentally ill that now our pets are becoming fat and mentally ill, and that's just dark, but funny.
It's the projection has become the reality. Now we're like, oh, we're struggling, so is our pet, if we're projecting ourselves onto our pets, right?
Yeah.
And then they are getting fat and they are getting unhealthy, or we're insisting that they are, and maybe they aren't. I don't know. I mean, they're definitely like physically getting big, so there's no doubt, but I meant like, well, that's just bizarre. So maybe the projection is becoming the reality. I don't know what to say.
Well, it's kind of a mind over matter thing, right? Like if you believe something to be true, then you tend to bring it about.
Wow.
To an extent.
Yeah.
So, well,
that's a happy way to end a podcast.
Happy way to end. Call it
humanity's
podcast. Whoa, that's funny.
Antipog, like anyway.
Well, that's the end.
That's the end. Do
Woof woof woof.
woof 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 woof.
Meow.
Yeah.